Good afternoon, Bermuda. I'm joined with the National Disaster Coordinator, Mr. Steve Cosham, and also the Gang Violence Coordinator, Pastor Leroy Bean. I wish to provide an overview on the ongoing work being done in the Ministry of National Security. More specifically, I wish to highlight the work of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Mitigation Unit and the Gang Violence Reduction Team. First, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Mitigation, DERM as they're commonly called, team, during these many months of uncertainty, particularly during the pandemic, hurricane season, the island-wide Balco blackout, and most recently the winter storms, our DERM team have worked tirelessly to assess the national risks and effectively coordinate targeted and tiered emergency responses. The critical information they provide to both the government and the ministry allows us to make the right and necessary decisions to ensure that our residents are kept safe. And with the lifting of the curfew, it's timely that I share some key updates with the public regarding some of the regulations that are still in effect. Following the lifting of the curfew, we naturally expect that residents will want to move around the island more. This includes frequenting restaurants and bars and engaging in more social and recreational activities. But I want to urge our community to continue to make responsible and sensible decisions. While the curfew has ended, the pandemic hasn't. And there is still a need for our residents to exercise caution to protect themselves, their families, and their loved ones, and their friends. In fact, I want to take this opportunity to commend the public for their cooperation during the curfew, as their compliance was a major reason as to why Bermuda's COVID-19 numbers declined following the surge last November. That said, however, there are some restrictions that remain in place, and they are as follows. While the curfew ended last Thursday on land, a curfew for recreational boating remains in effect. All recreational boating must end at 8 p.m. An important note regarding the regulations. Large group gatherings are still limited to 25 persons. For an indoor service or ceremony in a church or other religious establishment, the number of persons who can gather is limited to 25% of the indoors full capacity. For the number of persons at an outdoor service or ceremony, including weddings and funerals, the number cannot exceed 50 persons. In addition to the regulations, the Ministry of National Security is not accepting large group applications for funeral wakes, wedding receptions, birthday parties, and other such events at this time. We will, however, review the policy on March the 9th. As it relates to sports events, the Minister of Youth, Culture, and Sport recently provided an update regarding the return to play sports guidance. For our part, the Ministry of National Security will consider applications for increased numbers of persons to participate in sports events such as road running races only when Phase 4 of the Return to Play guidance has been implemented. The DERM team continues to work with our private and public sector partners to assess, advise, and mitigate against threats and risks. This includes working with our partners at the L.F. Wade International Airport to update the contingency plans that are required at all commercial airports, working with the Department of Health, Marine and Ports, the Bermuda Tourism Authority, and the ports authorities to review the safest way to implement the return of cruise calls to Bermuda, and reviewing and updating our cybersecurity protocols and best practices. The DERM also has oversight for the operation of the Emergency Broadcast Facility, 101 FM. I understand that several members of the public tune into this station, As such, I wish to advise that the broadcast facility will shortly be relocated to the new Prospect Video Tower. It is expected the radio station will be off air for 2 weeks at the end of February and the beginning of March, whilst this move takes place. Once this is complete, the public will be notified. Turning to the Gang Violence Reduction Team and the invaluable work done by the team. As a ministry and as a government, we know there's still much work to be done in the area of reducing violence in our community. We pledged in our throne speech that we will work towards bringing lasting calm to Bermuda's communities. In order to do this, we have been utilizing our existing mechanisms to address gun, knife, and gang violence. This includes continuing with initiatives such as the GREAT program, which restarted with the resumption of schools last year, the Redemption program, which also restarted last year with a new cohort of trainees. And while the work of the Gang Violence Reduction Team is mostly done behind the scenes, the impact that they have in the lives of young people, families, and neighborhoods is unquantifiable. What has been evident is that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused significant socioeconomic challenges for a large portion of our community. What we've come to understand is that social and financial instability leads to stress and added tension. And added tensions can often lead to antisocial behavior and violence. The Gang Violence Reduction Team continues to be an important force in tackling gang violence. The team's multi-pronged approach, strategies, and methodologies have proven to be quite effective within the various communities. Their proactive measures within the subcultures are very systematic. As an example, the team first identifies the past, present, and future challenges. These could range from mental health issues, emotional trauma, or socioeconomic challenges that had disadvantaged many in at-risk families and vulnerable neighborhoods. The team's overall objective is to assess and provide critical support to the valued individuals whom they engage with. This involves, but is not limited to, such measures as providing food and/or food vouchers, medical assistance, or shepherding them to the relevant organizations that can assist with meeting their various needs. Through our Redemption program, the Gang Violence Reduction Team provides job placement as well as vocational skills training. The plan was to have 13 trainees in the program. However, due to many of the jobs that we partnered with having to downsize their staff, they were unable to take many of our trainees. We currently have 8 individuals who are now taking part in the latest Redemption program training. The outreach to the primary, middle, and high schools is also an important focus of the Gang Violence Reduction Team. In the primary schools, we've implemented programs that encourage our young people to express their thoughts and concerns, while at the same time empowering them to have a positive view of themselves. And the Gang Violence Reduction Team conduct innovative interventions focused on group dynamics as well as individual sessions in our schools. I'm also pleased to advise that in partnership with clinical, social, and educational professionals, the Gang Violence Reduction Team will embark on several pilot programs to assist our young people. These include initiatives that focus on anger management, cognitive therapy, mood therapy, behavioral therapy, and parenting classes. The Gang Violence Reduction Team also continues to conduct restorative justice forums in our schools and throughout the community. The team's goal is not only to bring peace and harmony within the various communities, but to assist with the development of specific plans to help our vulnerable young people, individuals, and families so that they can be thriving members of our society. In closing, The Gang Violence Reduction Team have provided our affected communities with much needed emotional support, counseling, and emergency services during these times of hardship. We are incredibly grateful for the efforts of the Gang Violence Reduction Team, who have worked under some difficult circumstances to keep Bermuda's neighborhoods and communities safe. For our part, the Ministry of National Security will continue its priority of supporting the Gang Violence Reduction Team in its efforts of tackling the root causes of crime and working towards reducing violence in our community. We are also thankful for the work of the Durham team, who have embraced their work often under short timelines. And with the Gang Violence Reduction Team, the Ministry of National Security will continue to support the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Mitigation Team. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? So are there any final words that you'd like to share at all?
I'd just like to close with a personal comment for the country. Thank you very much for your adherence to the curfew. I know that it was a difficult time, and we were in our festive holiday season, and we were being told that we were unable to gather at more than 10 at that time, and we had a curfew. And for the most part, we had curfew breaches, but I truly do believe that Bermudians put their best foot forward, and we exercised what we know to do best, resilience, and we came through the outbreak that we had at the end of last year. So for that, I am grateful as the Minister of National Security, and I look forward to continuing to protect our communities as best we can.
Thank you, Minister. We appreciate your remarks today. That concludes today's press briefing.